Good afternoon, everyone. Allison Scott here, Consolidated Planning Group. We are here today with Gayle Fisher, and you're in for a treat. We're going to be talking about the transition game today. I always like to start with a few housekeeping items. First things first, you're going to hear a lot today, but you are going to get a copy of today's slides. So I always like to tell people that so you don't have to write down every single thing that you hear today, because you're going to get a copy of today's slides and a link to the recording. We are in webinar mode today, and what that means to you is that we can't see you or hear you, but we know you're there. And we have the chat box available. So if you have questions, we invite you to put your questions in the chat box. I have a few write-in questions that people sent in ahead of the webinar, so I've got those and we're going to address those today. But don't be shy. If you do have a question, we want you to put that in the chat box, because usually your question is going to be helping somebody else that's here as well. So just a little bit about Consolidated Planning Group. For those of you that are joining a webinar with us for the very first time, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. This webinar series is really born out of my own frustration as a parent, parent to four, two with disabilities, and I found it difficult. Difficult at best when I was transitioning with my kids from pediatrics to adulthood, and kind of all the things that we're supposed to be doing. And transition is a very broad word, and it can be used in a lot of circles, and some circles that are not special needs at all. But we're speaking about transitioning from maybe high school into adulthood, from peds to adulthood. All of those types of things are the things that we're going to be talking about today. Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and also chartered special needs consultants as well. Our whole firm is nuanced and planning for a loved one with a disability. When it comes to planning for a loved one with a disability, there's a lot of things that go into that. Sometimes we're planning for a loved one who may have care needs 20 to 30 years after we're gone. So it's almost like another retirement bucket when we're planning. And the careful and curious thing about everything is it's so critically important that we have money in the right buckets to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. And sometimes people are scratching their head when I say that, because their child has never qualified for anything. They've made too much money. Their child has never qualified for anything. Well, everything changes when they turn 18. And that is including if they're under guardianship. It's including if you still claim them on your tax return. It's including even if they live in your house. When they turn 18, it's based off of their income and assets, not yours. So although they may have not qualified for things in the past, they may start qualifying for things once they turn 18. So it's really important to understand, how do we have money in the right buckets? What do we need to do if we have money in the wrong buckets? How do we move those things around correctly, so that way it's a legitimate move, as opposed to I'm going to close the account or things like that, which is not cool. So we help with those types of things. We put lifetime protection plans in place. We do a lot of transition planning. We help set up ABLE accounts, and we do a lot of advocacy by way of these webinars. We have a podcast, and that is, you're going to find these on our YouTube channel. We have over 600 webinars on planning for special needs. If you can think of a topic, we have probably done it. And that is really to just empower you and give you the tools and resources. Because I know as a parent, and I know Gayle feels the same way because we were just talking about it, sometimes you just feel so overwhelmed or inadequate, or like, I'm not up for this. Like, hey, I'm a pretty smart lady, but this stuff is really hard. So if you've been feeling any of those things, you're definitely not alone. And so we want to empower you and give you some of the tools and resources that you need to be successful on your journey. So having said that, we're going to get started with Gayle. Gayle, thank you for being here today. I think I've been knowing you maybe 12 or 15 years nowadays. I don't even know. It's been a long time, but we're glad you're here. And I know, like me, you are a parent yourself. And I would tell you, my opinion of Gayle Fisher is she is a warrior mom. She is awesome. And, over around it through, she figures out a way, very educated on this kind of stuff. And so, Gayle, tell us about you.
Well, very kind words. I'm honored to be here. I want to disclose that both my son and I are clients of Consolidated. I basically do what Allison and her team tell me, so I'm very grateful. I've used in the past almost, well, a lot of the webinars on that YouTube channel, and I hand out that link to families all the time. So today we're going to talk about basically just one family story, okay? Because that's all I'm really qualified to give guidance on. Although I do try to learn everything. And so this is going to be kind of like we were talking at one of the resource fairs. So I'm on several teams. We see the links here. Thank you for those links there, Meredith and Allison. And so these teams are trying to amass in one place yet another hub of all of these, the tips of all the icebergs. So you go to Consolidated YouTube channel, you'll find a ton of information. And then there's other hubs, right? And you have your probably favorite 10. We're trying to help with another one or two. So these links are valid. I'm going to skip over early childhood. I'm resharing those Facebook memories all the time. I'm going to hopefully share with you some ideas. Let's say you're fearful, anxious, frustrated, worried about things over which you have very little control, but your kid's getting older. My kid's now 18. And if you follow me on Facebook, we've had some pretty wild and crazy adventures just since he turned 18 in September. So in sharing our adventure with the LEA, our ARD and parent presentations over all these years since his second, third grade, which was when I finally woke up and realized Section 7, Code 44, what? So I've just got a lot of pictures, and I'll talk a little bit about the history because I want to give you ideas. When you leave here, I hope that your brain's kind of buzzing about what could I do that I don't need to depend on the government, because who knows how many times you're going to have to be denied before. And Allison was just sharing that she finally had to use an attorney. I've got friends who've told me they've had to turn to that. So far, we're just on our third rejection, but we've got open deals with SSA on DAC and HHSC on a dropped Texas home living because the dad died and survivorship came in. So we got all kinds of open games. All right, so just that's a little bit of the back history. So some of this is teacher speak, and I hope that you use it in your ARDs. At the links here, at the links from the website, there's just a lot of things over the years I've tried to work on backward chaining John for. And backward chaining means that you just kind of start with the mastery of the final step, and then you work your way to the beginning of any process so that we can help our kids learn how to chew that elephant with executive functioning challenges more easily, whatever the bite size is, right? Because ultimately, I'm hoping that he has the intrinsic motivation to earn his future life. And that's always the nomenclature that I've used with him since I can remember, right? And that goes way back to his diagnosis was before age 2 with an anaphylactic reaction to fire ants. And that just totally blew out his immune system. And so everything about methylation and the immune system and therapy speak and all that stuff, I have recorded in multiple places. Not trying to overwhelm you. I'm just trying to reaffirm what Allison said, is that you are so much not alone. And here's a bunch of ideas, and maybe they help give you something else to try. Okay, so there we go. I will say that the older he gets, he's 18 now, the more I can, Allison, back just one more second, please. There's my favorite hashtag is Zip It Mom. So I just want to say that as we've approached all the social risks at the LEA, everything that we've had our teeth handed back to us with band, but it was worth it. It was worth the risk taking. As we approach all the things theater and performance and field trips, gen ed, specialized instruction, and everything in between, as we've hit the electives at the LEA, and we had a special process we took so that he didn't really have a LEA bias against him. They didn't really call him IDD until we've had to at prior to age 18.
Can you
With
tell us,
every
just in case there's anybody here that when you're saying LEA, can you say,
Oh, I'll say it out the long way now. My apology. Yes, local education authority. That's your school district. That's the school you go take your child to. So yeah, we're just we have a lot of acronyms, and I apologize for that. The individual education policy or plan, the admission dismissal. Or admission review and dismissal, we do fall into acronyms. It just means that depending on the age of your child, And oh dear God, am I glad that John's 18 now and not 2, because I will never forget that age 2, 3, 4, 5, my heart will always be there for you early childhoods. And I got all that history there, but we're going to move on with the 18 plus. So yes, local education authority. And you have rights, your child has rights, and there's ways that you can phrase it so that you will have much better traction. So here's just some pictures of all those words that I just mentioned. John has grown a lot because he wants to. And he always hears, what are you willing to do to earn your good adult life? So I'm trying to give him ever more tools so that he's ever more responsible. Okay. Thank you. You can click now. All right. So we do a lot at home with chores, and here's a lot of pictures. I love to take pictures, right? And so here's some examples. We really do want to take your questions, and I'm not trying to overwhelm you with a bunch of words, but I will say that since John's dad died when he was, right before COVID, his dad passed. And so that was just right before puberty, and then all the COVID stay at home, homeschool debacle. And then the dog died and his brother goes off to school, and just been a lot of emotional things that John's had to work through, and so has his mom. So there's been many times where I've been hit before, right? When he would show his frustration, impulse control and self-regulation is a big thing for us, right? And I've learned that it's not about me. And it might not even be about how he feels about me, but I am the safe person. I am that secure, safe person to whom he can do and say anything. So I've learned to say, do you need a hug? Do you need me to listen? And then I gotta zip. Hardest thing to do the older they get, but he's giving me sentences. I'm letting him. He has to have the space to tell me what he wants, to tell me that he wants to try the dancing, to work with Coach Todd on the shaving, man up there, to work with Coach Brooks, and we've done all the martial arts. I can't tell you how great for midline crossover every one of the martial art disciplines have been. We've been with Mr. Brooks since John was, I don't know, so tiny. Theater, pitching in, helping, doing his own packing, frustrations of public golf at those places where you go to rent the balls, right? Trying on his own clothes, grocery shopping, paying his own bills. Here's your credit card. We're going to go through it. It's not very pretty. Okay, I'm just going to let you do my copies. And when you can do my copies really good and sign it, then I'll let you do their copies. But I never pass up a chance, if I'm aware at all, for him to do it instead of me. Do that. Try that.
Gail, one of the things that I did with my kids is when they were in high school and we were going to the doctor's appointment, like the car talk. And I would say, well, today, when we go to the doctor, I want you to tell them why we're there. Like, if you need help, don't worry, but let's practice this in the car. And so I'm not speaking for you. I want you to speak on your behalf. And I recognize that some kids don't have that ability. But if your kid does have the ability and talking through, here's why I'm here, this is a follow-up, or this is my history, whatever that is, I did a lot of practicing of that in the car so that way they could speak that, because we're not always going to be there. And practicing with me being a safety net if they got tripped up that I could help. That was something that I think was good.
Well, I love that.
Starting
Yes.
on advocating for yourself and kind of, what is your story? How do you tell your story?
I love that. And so we do that too. And and you can even try it backwards. Let them finish the tail end of that conversation. And when someone asks me a question about John, I just look away and I let him, whatever version of not pretty that is, but that's okay, because we always start as early as we can today. Today is early intervention. And he may not do it perfectly today, but we'll get there. That's the whole idea of developmental delay, is that we'll get there someday, right? So is that the next one? I've got so many pictures here. So I do want to encourage you. I give John lots of opportunity, just like Allison was mentioning, and I was trying to follow up with that too, is that in all of these life's adventures, okay, you see the vacuum cleaner there, right? That cord, he's been vacuuming well recently, started off ugly. The whole idea of random, squaring it off a grid is a foreign concept for him with midline crossover like he's got. And winding the cord back has been an adventure, and my cord's been curly for years. But I just say, oh gosh, that's kind of ugly, isn't it? We need to do that better this time. And we unwind it, and he unwinds it, and he does it again. So even a simple thing as them vacuuming, even if it's not pretty, try again, try again. Awesome. Okay, cool. Oh, let's try that cord again. Not that's an ugly job. No, just let's do it better. And maybe a little bit of hand over hand, tiny little bit of BA, but then back off, mom, and let him. Should you maybe check that? You want to judge your own? You want to go back and check? You want me to check, or do you want to check that rug before you tell me to come and inspect it? So I give him lots of chances for him to see, oh, maybe I need to do it differently, better. Okay, also here on this slide, vacationing, traveling, him being responsible for the anything, right? Taking the garbage cans out, bringing them back to and from with the grocery store. He now can take his credit card, he did it yesterday, into the gas station place, pick out his whatever, come back out, and I have no idea what he bought, but I know he only brought out 2 things. So just letting them try and try. They're building their matrix. So when teachers speak, we call it scaffolding, platforming. They start off, call it backward chaining, call it anything that you want. And when you go to your ARDs and your IEPs, or when you're talking to the therapist, I encourage you to use their language. So if you're talking, learn doctor speak. If you're talking, learn therapy speak. Learn teacher speak. And let them appreciate how much wisdom you really have. We might clutch when we feel like, oh, we aren't quite worthy, but that's just the wrong kind of shame talking. Let your child take their time to explain it. He knows. I say, okay, you answer the question, give it your best shot. If you need me, you can say, and we practice too, I need more support. My mom's right here. We have done supported decision-making. This is one family's game, right? And I hope that we get to keep supported decision-making. I don't know how much trouble we're going to get into. So we're going to take this one step at a time. And we chose that because it's least restrictive environment. And I'm a big believer in that.
Let's pause on that for a second, Gail, and talk about that, because one of the questions that we got today was guardianship. It was just the word guardianship and a question mark. And first, what I want to say is that we have entire webinars on guardianship with attorneys telling you what the guidelines are for Texas. Every state is a little bit different as far as their guardianship guidelines. We call it guardianship here. Some states call it conservatorship. And I know that we have people attending from other states. But in Texas, the requirement, as Gail just mentioned, is least restrictive, most appropriate for the ward. W-A-R-D, it's an ugly word, but it's what they use. And so we have a such thing, as Gail mentioned, supported decision-making agreement. And basically it gives a parent the ability to help their child make a decision. Ultimately, the decision is up to the child, whatever they decide, but it gives them the opportunity to support them in that process. Then there's something, a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney, which gives the parent the rights to make some of those decisions on a power of attorney, financial stuff and things like that. Healthcare power of attorney if they are incapacitated. We have guardianship and we have partial guardianship. A full guardianship is going to take their right away to drive. It is also going to take their right away to vote, but partial guardianship can allow some of the things that full guardianship doesn't. So what I like to tell people, the general consensus, and this is not true for everyone, is that if your child has an intellectual disability and does not have the capacity to understand what they are signing, then maybe you need something more than a supported decision-making agreement and power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney. But here's what I want to tell you is every single situation is absolutely different, and doing a lesser restrictive option first, and then you find out, oh snap, maybe I do need something a little bit more. You can always up the ante later. So start small, up the ante later, but you don't have to know what you need going in. The attorney is going to be, their job is to talk to the child. to talk to you and to go through what your options are and to discuss what is the best option that is going to be the least restrictive, most appropriate. Because I know a lot of parents feel overwhelmed by this. It is overwhelming, and just the forms that you have to fill out and people get served. It is overwhelming. But just know that you don't have to know everything going in. It's okay. And the attorney's going to work with you. That is their job on that. So thanks for bringing that up, Gail.
Well, it's really important and it's baffling. So we did that. We had a good talk with the attorney that's been representing our family for a long time. And I'm grateful. And John also knows it's his responsibility that he needs to get help if he needs it. And oh, he was watching some goofy thing on YouTube last night. He has the things he likes. He doesn't perseverate toward porn, so we're really lucky that with that. But he likes to watch Sheldon Cooper and his goofballs, and then some of the other things that he likes to watch. And I hear him because we always eat supper together in the kitchen area, and I let him never take a device upstairs to bed. So I'm always near him so I can hear and monitor, and he knows to drift toward me. So that's been a long time in the coming. All right. So our digital rules were hard in the beginning, but oh dear God, have they been worth it? You know, the growing those neural pathways for those kinds of yin yang. And so he was listening to this over and over last night, and I said, you can do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. And he would circle through again. I said, okay, you can do that. That's funny. Ha ha. No, you can't do that. You go to jail. No, you can't do that. You go to jail. So the older they get and the more they dabble in things toward, as long as it's, I mean, I have to give him some rope, right? Some risk, but not where he bleeds all over the street. So I have to help him learn. We're scaffolding right and wrong, moral and not moral, good, bad. And I think he's got it until then he proves somehow that he doesn't quite have it. And then we go back and we review the lesson again.
One of the things I want you to talk about, because I have followed you on your Facebook page, and Gail does a good job of kind of sharing their life and good, bad, and indifferent, about failing forward and resisting the urge to helicopter these kids. And like I would give an example of letting him miss the bus, or he didn't get up on time or something like that. And that's part of giving the rope. But I think that's a really important thing. I don't know if you have a slide on that, but I want you to talk about that.
Sure. Click forward and let's see if we got something there. Because there was a time when John, and I've always been really lucky that he's always wanted to go to school. He loves that. So that's great. But he was screwing around and he missed the bus, and or he's late and I just yell, run, right? And sometimes he's come back. One time he didn't come back. And so it was really, really cold outside. And I had to deal with, all right, am I going to give him one more chance or am I going to not? And so as I talk with other parents about, like Barbara Grogan was really great about sharing one time her boys missed the bus, slept in, and she let him stay at home. And I used the same thing with John. So now if he's slow to get up in the morning, I'll just say, hey, it's okay. You can stay home and do mom work all day. And it's like that's a boom out. He's ready to get going. So if your kid hates school, then that's a little, maybe be careful you don't paint yourself into a corner. But I've been really lucky that John, that's no deal to him. He wants to go. Do I let him feel the consequences? Yes. Have I ever been kind-hearted and gave him an extra chance? If he showed remorse, or he showed that he really was in pain or was sorry or whatever, I'll show clemency, right? Because it's what's his age and what's the appropriate consequence for that behavior or that infraction. And if I'm wrong, I'll apologize, probably too much, but we're really honest with each other about starting over. I was wrong, you were wrong. That hurt. Let's do it better next time. And typically, if he makes a really bad choice, then I will let the whole day go with him feeling those consequences, unless he's shown me that he really is truly sorry and he knows that was wrong and he wants to try again. But if he's got an attitude, well, then I'll say, boy, I'm so excited we get to try again tomorrow. Because it's a yin yang of letting them know that it's real life. And at the same time, how can we work through so that you realize you apologize, I apologize, you know it was wrong, how are you going to fix it, how are you going to do it better next time? Prune that bad neural pathway, reinforce the good neural pathway, and okay, let's go do it right now and forevermore.
I love that. And I'm kind of a fan of, yeah, the good news is like the kind of the positive. The good news is tomorrow's a new day and we get a do-over. Isn't that awesome? And kind of letting it be okay that yes, today was a bad day, but all people have bad days sometimes, and it's okay. And tomorrow we're going to do this right. So very
And
good.
yeah, and I seldom rescue him in that in that day period, unless, like I said, he's shown that he really knows he screwed up. Right.
So, Gail, we're talking here about the transitioning in medical, and this is a big deal. And that's another one of those terms that we use. Transitioning is such a broad word that we use for individuals with disability. But transitioning in medical is not small. We have been in a cocoon. I call it a cocoon of pediatrics. Whatever children's hospital you've been going to, they have this multidisciplinary clinic and they all talk to each other and it's beautiful and it's very disjointed once we're kicked out of pediatrics, right? And so thinking about and having conversations with your pediatrician on what's next for me. I know in the Houston area, Baylor has a transition clinic that is pretty fantastic and pretty inclusive. However, it's not just for people with disabilities. They do have to have an intellectual disability. So that has been the one that I have seen as the most cocoonish type of transition program. Some of your neurologists, if they started seeing them in peds, they will see them as adults and they won't get rid of them. But asking your specialty clinics, asking your pediatrician, when are you booting me? Sometimes it's 18, sometimes it's 21. Sometimes it's no rhyme or reason between 18 and 21. It's like whenever they do a search or something, I'm not sure. But you want to know these because when you call to schedule an appointment with the pediatrician and they're like, yeah, snap, we can't see him anymore. Then you're scrambling to find a new physician. So I think that that's going to be a really, really important component. What was your experience with that, Gail?
Oh, absolutely. And then, okay, what extenuating circumstance? So I'm a big proponent of travel, right? I was yakking about that. So we just recently had a case where he just turned 18. I don't have any POA medical power of attorney with me. We're doing supported decision making. We're in Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden he has a man problem that mom waits for 4 days. I don't even know what a testicular torsion is, but we end up in the emergency room and it could have been a nightmare. It was for him personally with the pain, but he handled the needles and the taping and everybody looking under the hood and size of a papaya. And if you're a parent of a boy, look up testicular torsion because you need to know what that is and think left and right. Okay. And we didn't have anybody to go to. We're in an Airbnb with no ice in the little tiny fridge. So that was quite an adventure. And I was very proud of him. We early on, we had an anaphylactic reaction to fire ants. I had no idea what that was, but oh dear God, now I can see it coming a mile away. Almost killed him. And so that put us into a whole rebooting of his immune system. And we had to do all of the shots, the vaccines with little chopped up fire ants so that he could build up that formic acid resistance so that he could not live forever in fearful of fire ants in an EpiPen. We finally got that. But I know his immune system's kind of, not all in all cylinders. So back to methylation and autophagy and dietary and metabolism and genetics. I know there's a lot of big words, but I just want to let you know if you ever want to talk about it, I got a lot of those kinds of information searchable on the website, and I would be glad to talk further. There's a link here. I get a ton of my information for free. We've been going to that physician since John was 2. I'm still going there, Dr. Kendall Stewart. So here's a picture. Allison was talking earlier about with the attorney and the supported decision making. We had the conversation with the attorney, and I didn't know that outcome. I shut up. I sat in the back of the room and zipped it and let them duke it out. And I was really pleased that we're able to start with least restrictive. And again, John, you need to understand if you don't know the answer, then say, I don't know the answer. It's okay. I need some help. If you're talking about your testicles twisted up and dying for 4 days, or we're talking about anything. Okay, so here you see in the center, here's a lunacy thing. That kid's got a body mass index, a BMI of like 0.2, right? Tall, skinny guy. But he's watching one of his heroes on YouTube, and this guy is talking about the benefits of cryo. Mom wouldn't go in cryo for anything. I'm going to put on 3 coats, right? I'm not going in that thing stark naked. But he goes in and he lasts like almost 2 minutes. He's driving me nuts, wants to go to cryotherapy. And I'm thinking, okay, all right, fine. We walk past, free session. On the spur of the moment, I said, okay, dude, there you go, free session. Walk in, figure it out, do your paperwork. I'm standing back. They take care of him. Oh, could you go back one more time? Yeah, I know we're going to keep moving. I just want to finish this cryo because it goes back to that yin yang of the medical. And at the same time, here's something crazy that he wants. It's do no harm, but he wants it. And he's constantly talking about it. And he's got the expressive language. So it's not even costing me anything, right? And so he comes out and he's not mentioned it since. We had to do a centrifuge spinning thing. So that whole, we haven't done IVIG, but we've done so many medical things, not a little bit of woo-woo, nothing that's done him harm, but we've explored all kinds of things on building up his immune system. Super duper important for him and for me, for my longevity and his longevity in a good adult life. So please educate yourself on those topics as much as you can. He's choosing the needle. When he was 3 years old, there was 10 of us laying on top of him to get that needle in his arm. Now he'll just say, sure, take my vein, baby.
So, one takeaway from your emergency surgery and experience on vacation. So, taking notes, what I would say is I suggest that you do, if your child is 18 and you don't have a guardianship or partial guardianship, if you have guardianship or partial guardianship, you do not need a supported decision making agreement or power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney. If you have those documents, it is wise to email that to yourself to have it handy if you needed to send it somewhere else. And then on that same vein, if you have a child that has complex medical care needs or complex history, dates of diagnosis and any major things that another facility might need, because they can't just, it was not as easy to just link in. So sometimes they'll link in because they're all under my chart, but sometimes they have other systems. And so if your child's allergic to something, for instance, that's all good things to have handy. Okay. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah, sure. And I did skip over that birds and the bees thing on that previous slide. I try to meet him where he is. We have conversations that are very open and not embarrassing to me or to him. You might be embarrassed if you were listening, but we say it what it is. And whenever he looks away, that's my link to he's done with that topic for now. I used to distract him like crazy whenever something sexy was coming on the movies, right? But he would kind of just drift away, look at his phone, and then he'd come back. And I thought, okay, cool. So, but he'll now laugh at some of the words. Does he know what all the words are? I don't know. Have we talked about the boy stuff? Yeah. Have we done a lot of conversation about the girl stuff? No. Does he have someone he really cares about? Yeah. Did her dad say no, she's too young to date? Okay, good. Does John know how it works to make a baby? I don't know, but he hasn't asked me that specifically. So I'm just meeting him where he is on all of that, but not acting about anything. Just, dude, that's your privates. You can go up in your room and you can go do anything you want. That's called, I'll use the right word. I'll use the science word and then I'll use the colloquial word, right? So I give him a variety of vocabularies, but I say, okay, that's what it's called. And you can go do it in your room. And I've learned through the years, you don't say in the bathroom because they might generalize to a public bathroom. And I want to make sure that a man taught him how to pee at a urinal so that he knows just enough to keep the bum covered, drop it down in front, do his business and pull it back up and never expose the back. Because once the older they get and the more out in public they are, we want them no target. So it's not mom teaching a boy how to pee at a urinal. And I let him have his privacy up in his room, do whatever you want to do. I don't want to, don't want to hear. I even tried to talk to him a little bit about it, but he didn't want to talk about socks. So I thought, okay, fine. We don't need an apple pie. We don't need to talk about socks. We'll just let that slide off to another day. That's okay. Okay, so forgive me, that might have been more than you wanted to know. So let's talk about the public school system. I am very happy to share with you what I've learned the hard way so that you don't make some of the mistakes that I've made. I give away the 320-page PowerPoint that I have created over the years to help you as a model. You don't have to copy paste, but just remember that your ARD or your IEP, individual education plan, if you have to negotiate with your school for your kids' education, sorry about that, chief, It shouldn't have to be that way, but you do have to negotiate. Other families, the kids just show up. They got it so easy. And we're negotiating with the school so our kids get a fair shot, right? But it is illegal. There are legal protections your child has. There's certain words don't you dare use, and certain words, oh yeah, you should use. We'll help you with that. Um, and you have the legal right in that federal document to always tell them to please put this conversation in the deliberations, make sure everything is in writing. There's a lot of people that approach this that I don't want you to pay me to be your advocate. I want to train you in how I've been trained so that you can be your own best expert when you go and negotiate for your child. I don't want you to give away your power. And I want your child to see you being powerful and them learning how to speak up for themselves. My kid's gone to his art every year. And I told them, I said, if you start talking about all that deficit language and disability this and disability that, I'm pulling him out of the room. We're not contesting that. I know my kids' foibles. I work with them every day. We're not contesting that, but we don't wallow in disability language because it's always what he hears is what is he going to do to earn a good adult life, to earn that, to earn that. And they've done it.
I love that. And that's something that I read in the past, like you are not your disability. They are a person. They are not a label. And there's so many labels that are thrown around on for our kids with disabilities. And that's that person-centered language and person-centered planning and things like that. And I think that's really important. So you talked about your model and this link here. When we send out the slides, they're going to get a link to that model. Is that correct? And this
Absolutely.
Getting Sorted website is a wealth of information out there as well, correct?
Correct. And it's all for free. Well, actually, I put a tiny price on a few of the ebooks, but if it's a problem, I'll give them away. I also want to say that so conventional wisdom would have said that I would have gotten John evaluated with all those school evaluations every 3 years. But you see, I told the so when I say ARD, that's the team you have to negotiate with at the school, right? All right. I told the ARD team, of whom I was a member, that I am waiving his right for certain evaluations because up to now, you all have no IDD, intellectual and disability delay bias against John. So as we're really pushing and shoving to try to get him into resource classes, much more academically wealthy. Oh my gosh, the difference. I mean, it's not the specialized instruction teacher's fault, but John's got every learning inefficiency that there is. So the dysgraphia, the dyslexia, the dyscalculia, the executive functioning, motor planning, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I got that game show in my house every day. But I didn't want the school system to label him intellectually and developmentally disabled. They may have the A word. Okay, that's fine. But you don't have him labeled STUPID. You don't have him labeled stuck in his learning. So we just waived that. And so we pushed, nobody worked their school system harder than we did. We're at a point now where we had to do it. And I went to somebody who just helped with local intellectual and disability and developmental authority. So you have one in each county. You can Google your LIDA. And yes, sorry for all the abbreviations, but we'd be here forever. And I don't get that much time with you guys. But at the website, I got it spelled out. And there's a lot of wonderful advocates and experts that Allison has at their YouTube channel and at their, and there's a lot of experts out there, right? So I'm
There's a
trying to
lot
give
of
you,
help too. I just want to
yeah,
tell some people have never had an ARD meeting. Some people don't have, the individualized education plan in place for their kids and they need one. Maybe they have a 504, maybe they don't, maybe they're hearing this for the first time. There are webinars on this entire topic about how to request an ARD, like how this whole process works. There is help out there for you. There are paid for advocates that you can hire. There are also wonderful advocates through Texas Partners Resource Network. They have a lot of free advocates out there too. So if you need help, just know that you are not alone. And I guess my 2 cents is get help early.
yes.
Don't wait to be like, oh, Houston, we have a problem. Get help early. Get the help and not need it, and then back it up later. But get help early because the further they fall behind, the worse they feel, and that starts dominoing when they're in their teenage years and the junior high and high school. They're super aware of their inefficiencies because people tell them about it all the time. And so just get that help early, so that way they have the tools and resources that they need to be as successful as they can.
They're very peer aware. Allison's exactly right. They're very peer aware, and they will start to kind of curl up and hide, because my child is not as extroverted as he was when he was earlier. Um, and my litmus test is, I teach a lot of educators, train the trainer stuff. That's one of my favorite things to do. Is that I say, use your child and how they match with peers. Are they keeping up with peers? Or if they're not, then today is early. So maybe we need a few interventions for some developmental delay. And if parents have a hard time with that, it's not about them personally, but we could blame it on COVID, all right? We could blame it on all kinds of things. But if that child is not matching their peers, keeping up with their peers, let's maybe do something about it. And we can get free help, and it's no shame. So today, right? All right. So here's a couple covers. There's lots of pictures there. Sorry about that. But those are, so each year in my parent presentation, it's about 15, 20 pages, right? You have the right, I have the right, I submit 5 days prior to the school district. They submit their stuff to me, supposed to be, right? 5 days prior. I know they're going to predetermine, that's fine, deliberate, that's fine. I'm going to look at their stuff. And then when I show up at the ARD, there's at the meeting with the school district, there's really no surprises. The first year I woke up, oh dear God, it was warfare, and I came back 4 times, and I was so mad, and I had to apologize, and I did it all wrong. But I've learned then that I preset the meeting. They see everything I'm going to say and do. They're going to, unless we have to go back to, for another round at bat. But other than that, I'm giving them 15, 20 pages of, this is the stuff that is John's world, what we're doing outside of your school district. And when we come in here, we're equal partners, and we are not going to have, you're not going to lose traction. You're not going to lose what my kid's working on. This is how he learns the best. Here you go. Show pictures. Here's letters of recommendation. We're not going to let him slip into them. So this would be the school year, they're rising 10th grade, rising 9th grade, and then rising senior year. And lots of pages with pictures. I love pictures. If your kid, I talk to parents, get your kid to write a story. If they have expressive language, get them to videotape something, put that in there. Anything that comes from the child that shares to the school district how that child wants to learn, how they feel about themselves. Is that a clue that we're going too slow?
No, I'm sorry. That was my
Yeah.
mistake. I
No, no, no,
apologize.
no, no.
I was thinking
So
about the one-page resume. Like I've seen a lot of parents do that, like one-page resume, and I like your idea of including the kid on this. And I love all of your pictures and things like that, but including them, and that is always a nice start to the school year too, or if you get a new teacher or something along those lines. And it shows two things. It shows that mom cares, and that parents care. I come from a family of educators, and sometimes there is a general consensus among educators that these kids just run amok and their parents don't care, even though that's not true. So it shows that the parent does care, that the parent is very involved, but it also gives the teacher some tools and resources to be successful with the student, because these teachers want to be successful with the student as well. So I do love this, and I do think it's a good idea.
and a rising tide lifts all boats. So universal design, this helps all the kids in the class. Thank you. You can click again now. All right, this will tear your heart out, right? This is almost as bad as the day that you got to call in and put your kid on the waiver list. So you can have that almost 18 full scale intelligence quotient done at your county local IDD authority, or you can have it done with the school. I've used different cards with the different groups for different reasons. You might not want to get that specific, but I will be glad to talk more in depth about that if you wish. There's
Can we
the
pause
Wechsler.
for a second?
Yeah.
Because you and I throw around this whole LIDA thing all the time, but the LIDA, and somebody emailed privately, it's the Local Intellectual Developmental Disability Authority, and there's a lot of resources there, but this is also one place where you get on some of the Medicaid waiver interest list. And the Medicaid waivers, I just want to pause because we don't want to assume that everybody knows. Medicaid waivers are designed to waive off some of the cost of care for caring for an individual with a disability to keep them in home and community-based services. If you are attending from out of state, all states have Medicaid waivers. Unfortunately for us in Texas, we have about a 20-year waiting list for these waivers. It's a long, long waiting list. There are many states out there that don't have any waiting list at all. So if you are hearing this for the first time and you say, wow, I don't even know if my child's on the waiver interest list, reach out. We'll tell you how to do it. It is on the web, on the YouTube channel. We have multiple webinars on Medicaid waivers, how to get on the list and that kind of thing. But it's going to be really important because that's going to offset or defray some of your out-of-pocket cost in the future. We get to pay for these kids for the rest of our life. It's a lot of money. And so if you can take advantage of some of the programs to help defray some of these costs, it's important. But I just wanted everybody to know what a LIDA is.
And I apologize that I'm going at this rate of speed. I'm looking at the clock. If this is your first association, yeah, please forgive me. There's so much to do, but remember, it's a tasty elephant, and you just take a nibble at a time. Please don't be overwhelmed by what I'm saying. There's a lot of us that want to help you and take you step by step, and we all started uninformed. I do want to just reinforce to your optimism for your child how important today's day of learning and living with them. I'm going to call out the spirit of Alma Leota. So when John first went, age 2, to Texas Children's for his evaluation, and my heart was down in the toilet. I knew something was wrong. I'd heard ASD, but I was just starting, maybe where some of you all are right now. And this occupational therapist, God love her, we're still friends to today. She said, okay, Mom, right now I can tell your hair is on fire. I mean, if you think I'm talking fast now, right? She said, slow down. I can tell your hair is on fire. So let's look at it this way. Now, she started out with a circle, but over my years of train the trainer, I've changed it into a heart with a bisector. She said, all right, this is you. This is all of your energy, your heart, your resources, your time, your money, everything you got. And she said, I want you to take half of that and do everything you can to help your child. Forgive me, this always gets me verklempt. She said, I want you to take the other half of everything that you've got and you love that kid just as they are. You love them just as they are. You let them figure out things for their own. You give them mom back off hashtag, mom zip it hashtag. Let them find their joy. Let them find their purpose. Let them find their, and it may take a while, right? Because that developmental delay trajectory is just that. It's their own version of their game show. And they have a purpose. I'm a spiritual person. They have a purpose. I have a purpose. You have a purpose. Your child has a purpose. You take that other half of everything that you don't understand, that I'm going way too fast today because we only get this amount of time. Just this one slide you could talk at it for an hour and a half. And you love that kid and you listen to them and you believe in them and you do everything you can to let them find their way. Nobody learns because they receive 1,000 words. They learn when they teach themselves. Okay, so no different than today. Nothing I'm saying is going to stick unless you say, oh, that's what she was talking too fast about. I get it now. And so I go back to today is early intervention. Today is the most important day of your child's life, the most important day of their learning. And let them feel their joy in the we call it being in the flow, right? When you're in that thing in life where you love your moments, we want our kids to be in the flow of their day. So just remember that for all my speedy delivery of words, that's what I hope you remember.
I also talk about being where you are, like you are where you are, you're not behind. And sometimes people are Facebook moms and dads, and we see all this great stuff that everybody else's kids are doing, and it feels overwhelming sometimes. So join them in being where they are. It's okay. They're not behind. They are where they are. But like whether it's preschool, you have a baby, literally you're at the hospital and they're like, when are you going to have another one? I mean, you haven't even got home from the, we're always like, well,
You're
what are you
still
going to
bleeding.
right. You're like, what are you going to do next? And that's kind of the world that we live in, but like celebrating where they are and celebrating the wins that they have. And it's at their own pace. There's no value. Like I've seen parents where, they were angry because they got some kind of test and they wanted to put the kid backwards, really backwards, and it feels terrible if we're going backwards. But if that's where the kid is, count it a gift. Let's meet them where they are and let them get really, really good at honing their skills on where they're falling short right now. So that way we can build on those skills in the future. If stomp your foot and make your mad face and you get them to move them with their peers and they're not there, we're doing a tremendous disservice to the child. So having your own pep talk, because we have a lot of years. I always say, hey, we get to the party, we're usually late, but we get there and it's cool. It's okay to be late to the party. And sometimes it's not all what it was cracked up to be, but meeting them where they are and celebrating that win instead of they have this win, but maybe they're really behind on that win and saying, well, now that you did that, now we need to do this. We're behind. That's not the encouragement that they need. It's really truly celebrating those wins. And I think that that is so, so important. Gail, thanks for sharing.
Well, it helps us survive. So here's another page with a bunch of words and all of our battles, and your battle will be different than our battle. There's a lot of people that want to help you, and even the people that I've talked at the SSA and the HHSC, and I'm pen pals with them all. Mostly they're not snotty. Mostly they're really trying to do their job under terrible circumstances. I wouldn't want their job for nothing, right? So we can always talk about that later. Allison, let's see what else we got with I'm looking at the clock. I know pretty soon you want to go to questions and answers. So again, we're trying to amass information on growing up. What's next? So what are we practicing at home? Will our house become a waiver list? Who knows? Oh, am I working with a lot of teams in this out in the community, working with our state's Austin, with the money, with the trying to figure out transition? Yeah, there's really no end of people that are trying to help out. A big topic, that's a big iceberg. That's just the tip of it. More resources there. Let's click ahead and see.
I just want to say too that we have multiple 3 or 4 webinars where we did speed dating on housing, on residential living situations post age 18, where we've invited different places like Marbridge or Brookwood, just so many, 29 acres, so many different ones, Daymark, where they come on and they say who we are, where we're located, how much do we cost, do we take a Medicaid waiver, do we have openings, and everybody gets like 3 to 5 minutes to tell their story. And it's designed to be in the course of an hour that you can learn about all these places and make a note of the ones that you want to go to their website or maybe go take a tour, because this is a hot topic. And some of these places have long waiting lists. Some of them don't have waiting lists, but you want to plan early and educate yourself. And I encourage people to take the tours because I've toured a lot of these places and you either know it feels right or it doesn't feel right. This isn't a good fit. This is a great place, but not a good fit for us. So starting to do that and having fun while you do it. Like if you're gonna go to Marbridge, it's outside of Austin, have fun. Go get lunch. Go to Brookwood. Brookwood has a beautiful cafe and it's delicious. I mean, so make a day of it. Do some fun things while you're along the way and you're checking these places out. And a lot of these places will have where you could go, they'll have a trial run where, maybe you could do a weekend or an overnight or something like that. Now somebody said, do you know of any place that helps youth with harmful behaviors? Kids that are under age 19, there is a Yes Medicaid waiver, the Youth Empowerment Services waiver, and it does help with people that have some harmful behaviors. The primary diagnosis needs to be more mental health. They will look at ADHD and autism, but if the primary diagnosis is something like Down syndrome, then that's not a candidate for the Yes waiver. But the Yes waiver usually doesn't have a waiting list. I was mentioning a long waiting list for some of the other ones, but there is help for you out there. Now, I will say when it comes to housing, if we have kids with aggression, if they're a threat to themselves or others, it is much more difficult to get them placed. It is also much more difficult, and I didn't use the word impossible, but it is much more difficult to get them placed if they are not independent in the bathroom. But these are questions that you're going to want to be asking when you're talking to these places of, what do they take and what do they not take? an ex- I hate to use the risk, but an acceptable risk, because each place is set up differently in what they can handle and what they can't. And the last thing I want to say on that is, even though a person might be tempted, if you have a kid that has some less than ideal behaviors, to sugarcoat it, whatever you want to call it, be honest. Just tell the truth, because it always comes out. And then if you don't tell the truth, then basically it comes out, and then they're ripped out from under the place that you secured erroneously. So just be real with that. It'll be the best for you and the best for the kid. And I'm not suggesting that everybody's a liar. What I'm suggesting is, when we have kids that have serious behaviors, it's embarrassing, it's tough, it's highly stressful, and you may desperately need to find another housing location, but there are host homes and other things. There is help for you. So don't feel completely defeated if you're in that boat, and reach out and we can point you to some of the resources that might be able to help you.
Great. Click ahead, and I want to say one thing on what Allison was talking about there. So the whole idea is frustration. Why are they so frustrated? Now, this is not just like a whitewash to everything, but when we start with today as being the most important day of learning, and I make sure that John feels his consequences, and that so we start with a behavior, no, we start with a trigger and a behavior and a consequence. All right. So if I can tell that his sensory integration is about ready to pop, or something's going wrong, his regulation is about ready to blow, or something, can I help him realize, ooh, I need to calm myself down? And then we will be able to bypass the bad behavior, and then the consequence will be a whole different story. So if I can help him build this day by day by day of reducing his frustration, using his words, use your sentences. If you want to go do that, you can up in your room. But when we're out in the world, we need to use sentences, make a good choice, quiet body. And I don't hammer them, but just tiny little reminders. I can just, we can say paragraphs just by looks, or a one word. So I'm trying to help him with his frustration. If I can help him with his frustration and his communication, then we might be able to bypass many of those things that Allison was talking about. Okay, so here's more about something that's overwhelming to you guys. Click ahead, Allison. We're just about out of time. I know. I just want to see if I've got, so a bunch of big words. I think I got more pictures. Keep going. These are just I know you guys are drowning in words. Keep going. Will can talk more about this anytime. I am happy to help. He loved getting his photo ID card. He may never have a driver's license, but oh my God, we made that a plaything, and I carry it until he can carry it and not lose his wallet. But he thought that was hot spit. We got his passport finally. And so now we can go places, right? And as far as, and he can still, when he's ready to work on Aceable, he knows he can. I'm not pushing and shoving him on Aceable, but I'm not going to let him have electric scooter until he learns rules of the road. So here's
I
your
want to
choice.
mention on the driver's license and delaying a driver's license, there is disability driving services. There's one lady that's great, Miller Driving Rehab out of the Woodlands, that I've used. I've also used Straw Mat Driving Rehab, or Straw Mat Rehab. And these are behind the wheel instruction for kids with disabilities, that kids learn differently. Maybe they have processing speed delays. So there is help for that. And then, Gail, this is a timely slide, because, we have a school ID and other things like that. It's real important to get their ID. You can schedule an appointment online. And I was just doing that for driver's license stuff this morning. You do have to have an appointment with DPS. There is a such thing at DPS of disability appointments. So if you have a kid that's on the spectrum, or they don't wait well in line, or we have big meltdowns and stuff like that, you'll have to call. I didn't see it online to schedule that, but you can schedule. They have special appointments for individuals with disabilities as well.
And they had this little thing you could stick your head through, and it kind of like at a zoo, right? And get your picture taken with it. It was a great adventure on both of those. And he learned a lot, and we took our time, and I made him own the process. You want to click ahead, and I think we're probably almost out of time.
Yes, and I just wanted to mention that Aceable is driver's ed, and I did that for my kids as well. It's online, and it's connected with Texas DES. It's back then, I mean, my kids are older, but it was the best one I found. So if
And
you're
it's not
looking
that
for that,
expensive. Yeah,
It's
and
inexpensive and they do it online and they don't do driver's ed in school anymore. So
right.
that's a thing.
Look
For
into it, Google it. It'll be worth the small pennies, the small amount of money that you pay for it. Even if your kid never does anything with it, they'll know that it's sitting there waiting for them to make the choice.
And so for the SSA stuff, Gail, I just want to say we do entire webinars on SSI and Medicaid, SSDI and Medicare, and how do I work and get benefits and then working how it affects the different programs. Guys, this is a 10,000 pound gorilla. It is confusing. If you felt confused, you are not alone, but we can definitely help you with that. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. We know all about it. We know who to hire. If you have been denied multiple times, there's other issues going on, we can help you with that. So just know that there's help for that.
Absolutely. Click ahead. There's a couple with pictures. I just wanted to end on that. Keep going. This is all for you guys. So don't overlook the joy of extracurricular activities. Here's a bunch that we're doing. Love them. It's made him into a happy kid. Can you go one more forward? And here's some other things that we've done for, just consider these ideas, right? That your neurotypical kids would be doing this stuff. And maybe you have to do a little bit more of helping, but learning how to change that air filter and helping out at the slimy food bank and doing all those things. Your kid will find what they love in their life. There's nothing to replace when your kid's eyes get shiny and they're happy with their day. Never underestimate, if you put your kid to bed and their eyes are shiny at night, you've done a good job, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, you've done a good job.
That is so right. And you know what, Gail, you said something, these extracurricular activities. One of the things when we think about transition is we want to avoid our kids coming home and doing nothing, playing video games. Like they graduate at 18, maybe it's 20, 21, 22, whatever it is. They have community and they have friends and they have activities, and it takes a nosedive when high school is over. So what is next? Is it a transition program? Is it sports? There's so many things. Gail and I were just talking about. I know we support a special needs baseball team, and Gail was saying her son participates in that as well. There's so many activities out there, but find one. And maybe your schedule's crazy, but maybe it's one. We do one and we complete that, and then we do another one or something along those lines. That's going to be really important. Friends, community, that is the important part of all of this. And we did a webinar with Temple Grandin, and for anybody that has a kid on the autism spectrum, they know who she is. Okay, so she is on the spectrum herself, and she's an older adult at this point, but she was autistic when autistic wasn't cool and wasn't really known, is the bottom line. But she totally transformed. She's got her PhD. She's a professor at the Arizona State University, and she was talking about so what. So what? Your kid's not good at math. So what? Your kid's not good at spelling. What are they good at? Let's focus on the things that they are great at, and let's run with them, and let's stop caring about the things that they simply can't do, because there's plenty of things that they can. So check that out on the YouTube channel. You guys are going to get a copy of these slides. It's going to have Gail's contact information. It's going to have our contact information. We always offer free personalized consultations. So reach out. We're happy to help you any way that we can. Gail, it was a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story. And I know it has been my pleasure to follow you on Facebook. If somebody wants to follow you on Facebook, how do they do that?
Yeah, just somehow let me know that you're not a hacker and you're going to make me sorry. And I'll be glad to let you follow. I post even the old stuff of John's. That yes, parents come up and say they appreciate the posts. I say, did they make you laugh? Did they make you cry? Good, because that's what we're doing. We're just helping each other. And I'm an educator. I don't want to try to tell you what to do, but I'll show you all of our aches and pains and joys and highs and lows. And just let me know that you're not going to hurt us. That's
That
all.
sounds great. Well, thank you, Gail. Thank you again for being the warrior mom that you are. And thanks for sharing your story. Lots of great information out there. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. And we'll look forward to connecting with all of you again soon. Take care.